Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. We have a great show for you today. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. We're going to talk about what went wrong in the National League Divisional Series. The Dodgers just won one game, the first game after winning 111 in the regular season. So we're going to talk about everything that went wrong and what maybe could be changed for the future and all of those kinds of good things. But before we dive into it too much, just a reminder, if you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily, and share this video so Dodgers Daily can keep growing and we can keep providing you content like this in the future. Okay, so we're going to dive into all this, and I'm going to open up all of my notes, and we're going to get after it, and we're going to talk about what happened in the National League Divisional Series. Of course, we all know that Saturday night the Dodgers had a 3-0 lead going into the sixth inning and then could not hold on to that. The Padres won the series against the Dodgers 3-1. Very disappointing, like I said, after winning an historic 111 games. Obviously, the goal is to win 11 in the postseason and win the World Series. That's the goal for everybody. Andrew Friedman came out last night or yesterday and talked about, this was a great regular season, but obviously very, very, very disappointing. And obviously, it's disappointing for everybody when you have a fan base that got used to winning so much and a fan base like the Dodgers that is so loyal and just so hungry for championships, and when it does not end up reaching the ultimate goal, it is disappointing for everybody, the players, the managers, and we're going to talk about the decisions that Dave Roberts made, the fans certainly, the general managers, everybody in the front office. It is disappointing for everybody. So we're going to go over some of the moves that were made, game by game, game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4. Of course, in game 1, the Dodgers got out to a really quick start, and then, that they got out to the 1-0 lead, and then eventually a 3-0 lead. But, what we saw in game 1 kind of was a precursor to what was the doom of the Dodgers in a couple of ways. One is they scored early and got out to the early lead and eventually won that game against the Dodgers. But what we saw is they scored early and then didn't score against the bullpen at all against the Padres, and that really was a bugaboo in the entire series. And then we also saw that the Dodgers, in my opinion, they relied on the home run too much to score. They were not manufacturing runs. They weren't generating runs. They were just simply hitting home runs. Of course, hitting home runs is a good thing, but it's not a great way, to build an offense in a postseason setting when it gets a little bit colder. There's no way that you're going to be facing down staff people on other teams' pitching staffs during the postseason, because they're only going to throw their best bullpen arms. They're only going to throw their best matchups. They're only going to throw their best starters. So you're not going to see any down staff like you might throughout 162 when teams are dealing with injuries and they're dealing with arm fatigue and those kind of things. You might throughout the season see some down staff from time to time. You're not going to see that in the playoffs. So relying on just hitting home runs to score runs. We saw that in game 1, although the Dodgers won, and we saw them not score against the Padres bullpen. That was kind of the one of the reasons, not kind of, it was one of the reasons why the Dodgers did not move on. So the Dodgers added 3 more in the bottom of the third on doubles by Trey Turner and Will Smith. And then if you remember the big fielding error by Will Myers in game 1 on Cody Bellinger's hit to first base, it looked like it was going to be business as usual. The Dodgers were going to go up 1-0 in the series, and it's a series that the Dodgers dominated all the way up until the National League Divisional Series. So it looked like, although San Diego did answer back with 3 runs against Julio Urias in the 5th inning, the Dodgers were able to win that game and move on to game 2 with a 1-0 lead. Had Clayton Kershaw on the bump, had a 1-0 lead, had commanded the series. Everything looked great. So let's go ahead and chew on some of the decisions that were made in that game. Trace Thompson started in left field. I know he went, I believe, 1 for 11 in the series. So he didn't hit the ball all that well, but I think we can all agree that Trace Thompson, he had a couple of really good at bats. He drew a couple of really good walks. So Trace Thompson played very good defense. I think we can all agree that putting Trace Thompson in the lineup certainly wasn't a bad idea. He went 2 for 13, I should say, in the series, which is 153. Trace Thompson did. He walked 3 different times, and his on-base percentage was .333. So I think we can all agree that putting the Trace Thompson in the lineup certainly didn't hurt. I think it was the best option. When you look at Chris Taylor, I don't think he was fully healthy. Cody Bellinger was in center field that night. So it was kind of three men fighting for two spots between Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor, and Trace Thompson. And I think Trace Thompson definitely was one of the best two out of those three. Although he just went 2 for 13, like I said, 153 average for the series. He did walk 3 times, and he played very good defense, had some good at-bats. So I think that was probably a good decision. Chris Taylor, as a matter of fact, went 0 for 7 in the series. So I think that the data shows that putting Chris Taylor in the lineup for Game 1 and for all 4 games was the right move for the Dodgers. Chris Taylor had not played a regular season game, as I look at my notes, since September 30th. And then if you look at Joey Gallo, you say, what about Joey Gallo? Why didn't you put him out or give him a shot? Well, he hit below 200 in every month this season, Joey Gallo did. I'm going to say that again. Joey Gallo hit below 200 in every month this season, and in 2022, he struck out 100 times. Okay, he struck out 160 times. So I think maybe Joey Gallo, maybe for a pinch hit in a right situation, but I think definitely putting Thompson in left field was the right move by the Dodgers in Game 1, and leaving him in for the entire series was the right move as well. Okay, so let's talk about on the pitching side of Game 1, Julio Urias was cruising through 4. He was pitching backwards. He was doing what he does against the Padres and throwing very well. Got taken out in the 6th inning. Okay, that's the blueprint, the model that happened in Game 4 that we're going to get to later. Okay, and so the Dodgers bullpen came in after Julio Urias, and they shut the Padres down, simply put. They held on to the game. Evan Phillips came in. There's a little bit of drama with Evan Phillips, but he came through, and Urias, and that's not an easy decision, because there's no doubt Urias throughout this year, especially without Walker Buehler, without Dustin May, he has taken the reins as the clear-cut number 1 pitcher for the Dodgers. So, I mean, that's not an easy decision to take your clear-cut number 1 pitcher out of the lineup after 5 innings, bring in a bullpen, but it's a little bit easier when you have Evan Phillips to go to, who has been so good. Evan Phillips, like I said, did have a little bit of drama, but he induced, remember, that double play from Will Myers that Gavin Lux started, and he got through his 6th, and then, like I said, Evan Phillips has been dominant, and then it was kind of like, well, who's going to be the closer and for the Dodgers, and we saw that Brusdar Graterol came in and got an out, and Alex Vesia was good, and then Chris Martin got the last 3 outs. So I think if you look at the way that the bullpen was used in Game 1, I don't see that there's any way that anybody could complain as far as when Urias came out. He had just given up 3 runs in the 5th inning, and then I think Evan Phillips, you could say, well, Evan Phillips, I thought he might be the closer, but, the last 3 outs aren't always the biggest 3 outs. I do think that the biggest 3 outs of Game 1, were in the 6th inning. I think Evan Phillips got them. So I think, and bringing Alex Vesia behind him, and then Brusdar Graterol to get his 1 out, and then letting Chris Martin get the last 3 outs. I think the bullpen was used exactly perfect in Game 1. The Dodgers win Game 1, move on to Game 2, and then, like I said, they get out to a lead. They have Clayton Kershaw on the bump. Yu Darvish is on the bump, the former Dodger, and he has 6 pitches. Tough matchup for the Dodgers. Very unpredictable as far as what pitches he throws. The Dodgers used the exact same lineup. Now, why wouldn't you? You just won Game 1 of the National League Divisional Series, and so why wouldn't you use the exact same matchup, the exact same lineup of which the Dodgers did? So I don't think there's any way that you can complain or criticize the actual lineup that was used for Game 2. The biggest offensive decision in this game was Austin Barnes. He would pinch hit for Cody Bellinger, which, a lot of people thought, well, why didn't you use Chris Taylor? Well, I'll tell you what, Austin Barnes, let's break this down. He hit a 98-mile-an-hour fastball that had a launch angle of 35 degrees. Now, of all balls that were hit 98 miles an hour with a 35-degree launch angle, the average on those are 273, which is great. I mean, when you look at 273, that's way above the pinch hit average of either league or in the major leagues. So to get a ball hit that has an average, I should say, of 273, and it had a 23% chance of having a home run based on all the average of all the baseballs that were hit 98 miles an hour with a 35-mile-an-hour launch angle. That is a great result for a pinch hit setting. And then stack on top of that Chris Taylor went 0 for 7 for the entire division, for the entire series. Then Austin Barnes had a great game and went 2 for 2 in the game that he started. There is no way that you can argue that that was the wrong decision. Putting Austin Barnes in that scenario, the Dodgers got exactly what they wanted. They got a hard-hit baseball that was hit well above the major league average for exit velocity. It just happened to be hit right at somebody in the outfield. So just because something ends up in an out does not mean it was not the right move to make. That definitely proved out to be the right move as far as offensively in Game 2. And then Clayton Kershaw got pulled after the 5th inning. He gave up 3 runs. He gave up 6 hits. And then Brusdar Graterol came in and threw a scoreless inning in the 6th inning. And then Yency Almonte, Tommy Kahnle, they both threw scoreless innings as well. But then Blake Trinan, a guy that's been hurt all year, hadn't thrown a whole lot. He's on the roster, obviously, for the postseason because he said he was healthy. And then, obviously, he has been so great in the past. He gave up a home run. I don't think there's anything there. I mean, if Blake Trinan's going to be on the roster, you got to give him a shot. And why not give him a shot whenever, in that scenario in Game 2 when you don't already have the lead? So I think that was the perfect scenario to see if Blake Trinan is going to be able to help you in the postseason. I didn't hear anybody complain that he was on the roster to begin with. I think everybody assumed that was going to happen. I don't know how you could complain about Blake Trinan coming into a game for the Dodgers because he's been just so great during his career as a Dodger. So I think that decision, is one that all the Dodgers fans saw coming, and I don't think there's any way to complain about that. So, that brings us to Game 3, and after going 1 for 7 in its first 2 games in the National League Divisional Series, the big decision here for starting lineup-wise was not putting Cody Bellinger in the lineup and instead putting Chris Taylor in left, who has been good in the postseason. We've seen the postseason heroics of Chris Taylor, and then Trace Thompson. Again, he had a couple of good at-bats. He played good defense, so I don't think there's anything to really critique there. I think that's, like I said, there were 3 guys vying for 2 spots, and the Dodgers were trying to find offense. Let's put Chris Taylor in there. Let's see if he can provide some offense. Chris Taylor had been a .250 lifetime hitter in the playoffs. His OPS lifetime in the playoffs had been .816. He also hit .351 last year in the playoffs. So there's no way as a Dodgers fan you can complain about the Dodgers trying to get Chris Taylor more at-bats. And kind of the irony of this is that some of the people that maybe were complaining that Chris Taylor started instead of Cody Bellinger, which I don't think they're a whole lot, but they're probably the ones that were also complaining that he should have hit for Austin Barnes. So, I think, you can't win in some scenarios, but I don't think any Dodgers fans were up in arms one way or the other as far as Trace Thompson and Chris Taylor playing and then Cody Bellinger sitting. So, the big decision, start Tony Gonsolin. Now, here's the deal. There was going to be a bullpen game somewhere along the way, okay? It makes total sense to make that bullpen be the day after an off day. And the reason is that guarantees you in your bullpen game that every single bullpen arm is going to be available. And that's why the Dodgers only gave up 2 runs in the bullpen game. So there is no way to complain about the fact that say, well, okay, we have Tyler Anderson for a start, and then we have a bullpen game in the next 2 games. So let's make the best matchups here. So you make your bullpen game the day after an off day, so every bullpen arm was available, and we saw that. Andrew Heaney was the piggyback starter behind Tony Gonsolin, who quite frankly didn't have it. Andrew Heaney came in and did a very, very, very good job. So here you go. Well, some people say, well, you start Tyler Anderson because he's your best guy available. Well, actually, the best guy available for the Dodgers at that moment that in their career had the most success against the Padres as a lifetime was Andrew Heaney. Just go look at the numbers. And they had Andrew Heaney in a piggyback role in that game to pitch the bulk innings so he could clean up behind Tony Gonsolin. So in case what happens where Gonsolin doesn't quite have his great stuff, you have Andrew Heaney to come in behind him and clean things up, which is exactly what happened. It was a perfect plan, an absolutely perfect plan. It worked to perfection. The Dodgers only gave up 2 runs total in that game, which was less runs than they gave up in the game that Tyler Anderson started. Of course, we're going to get into the decision of pulling him in a minute. So deciding to have the bullpen game the day after an off day was an absolutely beautiful decision. It was one that absolutely perfectly worked. The Dodgers only gave up 2 runs. The Dodgers lost that game Game 3 because they couldn't score. I mean, they lost the game 2-1. So, I mean, there's no way to complain about giving up 2 runs to a good Padres offense in that scenario. The bullpen idea after the day off worked to perfection. For anybody who complains about that, I will vehemently disagree. It absolutely worked. You cannot complain about in my opinion, about a scenario to where the organization put together a plan that gave up 2 runs. I mean, it absolutely worked. So that's my opinion on the bullpen game in Game 3. It worked, and it was a good idea. And like I said, you put yourself in a great position to win that game, and then have Tyler Anderson to finish that thing out, and then have Julio Urias to go in Games 4 and Game 5. I mean, that's a great setup. That simply put, the Dodgers just didn't hit. So Game 4, let's get into it. Chris Taylor starts the second game in a row, and like I said, I don't think that's a decision that many Dodgers fans are at odds with. But if you are, I mean, I just went over his postseason statistics from last year. Trace Thompson had looked decent in a couple of at-bats. He'd at least drawn a couple walks. His on-base percentage was not terrible in the series, .333. So, Austin Barnes in Game 3 had 2 hits. He went 2 for 2. I think the big thing here is, well, why doesn't Austin Barnes start in Game 4 after going 2 for 2? He had the good pinch hit at bat. So I think that's probably the number one thing you could discuss about Game 4. The Dodgers do that quite a bit. I think that does leave the door open for criticism. I think that is a good question. Hey, Austin Barnes had done everything that he was asked to do. He came up and he pinch hit. He hit a 98-mile-an-hour ball as a pinch hitter. He went 2 for 2 in Game 3 in the game that he started. Okay, but here's the deal. To leave Barnes in, Will Smith would have had to DH, which means Justin Turner would have had to play third, which ultimately means that either Muncy or Gavin Lux aren't in the lineup. Okay, so that was a decision to make. I think at the very least, it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. Max Muncy had a big home run in Game 1. Gavin Lux had a big double in Game 1. So I don't think you're going to leave Justin Turner. I know hindsight's 2020. He did not have a good series. He did not have a good postseason in 2021. But I think that's all hindsight. I don't think there's any scenario where you take Justin Turner out of lineup and don't play him. So I think he stays at third, and then one of Max Muncy and or Gavin Lux aren't in the lineup. Both guys that, of course, hindsight's 2020, and neither one of them had good games in Game 4, so you can say that. But coming into Game 4, you don't know that yet. And like I said, they had both had big hits in Game 1 and been big parts of the offense all year. So although Austin Barnes did go 2 for 2 in Game 2, he had the good pinch hit. I don't think there's I think 6 one way, half dozen the other. I mean, I think that's just one of those decisions you make and then you move on. Okay, so let's get to the pitching decision. If you go back to the preview of Game 4 at Dodgers Daily, I tried to explain to you just how dominant Tyler Anderson has been against the Padres and how he was going to use that environment against them because he changes speed so well. That absolutely played out. He mesmerized the Padres. The Padres had all of this adrenaline, and for a guy that uses the off-speed and is so unpredictable the way he throws his off-speed like Anderson is, he was the perfect matchup in that type of environment and against that team, and it proved to be the case. And he went 5 innings. He looked great. His pitch count was, I believe, under 80. I think it was maybe right around 80, somewhere in there. But it was a pitch count to where he at least could have went 1 more, maybe 2, and maybe 3. Tyler Anderson came out and said he could have thrown 5 more if they wanted. This was a decision that I said at the time. I said it on all of my social medias. After he threw his last out of the 5th inning. Hey, I know analytics would say, and I know everybody knows why they did it. Analytics will tell you not to let a guy face a lineup the 3rd time through a lineup and let him face all the hitters of the other team's lineup 3 times. Okay, but I would suggest that you let him keep going. Sometimes, analytics are great, but there are times where I think that you have to use the eyeball test, especially in a postseason setting. And in this scenario, Tyler Anderson was absolutely cruising. He was doing everything that he could to shut down the Padres, and the Dodgers weren't scoring a whole lot. So whenever you take out a starter, and here's my biggest part of it in this scenario, as high pressure as elimination games are, when you take a starter out early, you're asking so many people to have to come in behind him. It just takes one guy, like we saw with Tommy Kahnle, to not have their A stuff, and you're in trouble. like Tommy Kahnle didn't, where he came in and walked the leadoff guy and then didn't get all three of his outs, and then things kind of snowballed. Well, not kind of. They did snowball from there, and the Dodgers gave up 5 runs, in the 6th inning. So in a playoff series, I think you need to use the eye test. I don't think there's any doubt about it. So this was a decision that, going forward in the future, Andrew Friedman talked about analyzing what we could do better to win and not have this happen to us again. One of my suggestions would be in a playoff setting, in a setting like this, maybe not throughout the season, because we saw last year what happened to Walker Buehler when he had the dead arm towards the end of last year and then ended up being hurt in 2022. Not necessarily maybe throughout the regular season, but in the postseason, I think you need to use the eye test. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I said this is not second guessing. This was first guessing. You can go to my social media and check it out for yourself. This is a situation where Tyler Anderson should have been left in, and in my opinion, left in until he couldn't throw anymore. I think he was going to continue to dominate the Padres, and at the very least, at least give you 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 more innings, and then you have a fresh and healthy bullpen ready to go for games 4 and game 5. So this is the one decision where I think the Dodgers got it wrong. Tommy Kahnle came in, and if you want to say, well, why did he bring in Tommy Kahnle? Why was he the first guy coming in? Well, let me explain how good Tommy Kahnle has been. I mean, I don't have a problem with the order of the pitchers that came in. I think, I have faith in everybody in the Dodgers bullpen, because Tommy Kahnle has been lights out. He allowed just 1 earned run, Tommy Kahnle did, in 9 outings since returning on September 14th. And again, in that charged environment, that changeup plays well because everybody has extra adrenaline, and when you're pulling that string, it makes it tough on hitters. And then he did not allow a run in Game 2 or Game 3 in the National League Divisional Series, so there was no reason to not have confidence in Tommy Kahnle that he was going to come in and pitch the same way he had, basically since he returned in September. So I don't have a problem with who came in. I have a problem with the fact that Tyler Anderson got pulled for no other reason other than analytics tell you not to let a pitcher face a lineup 3 times, which I don't necessarily disagree with as a whole, but I do disagree with in a short 5-game playoff series. I think the eye test needs to be used more. I don't think analytics are as effective in short bursts as they are in the marathon of 162. So I think the Dodgers overall, I think this is a game plan from the organization, not just Dave Roberts. I think the Dodgers overall need to rely less on analytics in short playoff series, 5 games, 7 games maybe, a little bit more, but certainly in 3 games and 5-game series. I think the Dodgers need to rely on analytics quite a bit less, and I think if they did, Tyler Anderson would have stayed in, and I do think the Dodgers would have won Game 4. I think Julio Urias would have won Game 5 at Dodger Stadium, and everything would have been okay. The Dodgers would have escaped, but it didn't happen. So overall thoughts, having said all that, we chewed on all the decisions, the lineup, all the pitching change. Here's the bottom line. The Dodgers scored just 10 runs, okay, in 4 games. So they went 3 for 27 with runners in scoring position. 3 for 27, runners in scoring position, scored 10 runs in 4 games in the 3 losses. So although, you can talk about the Tyler Anderson decision, you can chew on the Austin Barnes pinch hitting situation, you can chew on all the different lineups, that's fine. Bottom line is, you're not going to win a series. Well, it's going to be tough, at least, scoring 10 runs in 4 games and going 3 for 27 with runners in scoring position. Let's make it real clear. That's why the Dodgers lost. That is almost exclusively why the Dodgers lost. They did not hit with runners in scoring position, and we heard and saw Andrew Friedman address that yesterday. Hey, how do you fix that? Who knows? I mean, you have some of the greatest players in baseball. You have some of the players who've had some of the greatest careers in the history of time, like Justin Turner. You have guys like Will Smith who have come up clutch in the past, guys like Chris Taylor who have come up clutch in the past, and then you have guys like Justin Turner who have had just wonderful careers, but didn't, just didn't hit the baseball in this series. And then you have guys like Trey Turner and Mookie Betts and of course Freddie Freeman. He's just wonderful. But you constructed a lineup of guys that have been clutch in the past, guys who've had great careers, and some of the best players in baseball. So what's the answer to only hitting 3 for 27 in the playoffs? Honestly, I'm going to tell you the Dodgers were decent at that. In fact, I think I read a stat on Dodgers Nation where they were actually very good at it. in the regular season, I don't think there is an answer. I think it's just simple bad luck that guys didn't hit at the wrong times. And then whenever you start getting behind in a series, I think if the Dodgers would have continued to win and just figured out a way like to win game 2 and had a lead in the series, didn't feel the pressure that the Padres put on them, I think that probably would have self-corrected itself. But when you get behind in a series, especially, or in a game, especially whenever you are the heavy favorite like the Dodgers, where you start feeling it, you start getting uptight, and then you start trying to press a little bit. And we know in baseball when you do that, that's not a good scenario. So I think that's probably what happened to the Dodgers. I think that's what led to the 3 for 27. So we can chew on all these decisions throughout every game, but I think it's as simple as the fact that the Dodgers did not hit with runners in scoring position, and a lot of times didn't even situationally hit and didn't get the run in from third with less than 2 outs. We saw that a couple times as well. So I think, all in all, I think Dave Roberts made one decision that I would disagree with. That is to pull Tyler Anderson out. He's taking way more criticism than he deserves for this series. He cannot hit. It's not his fault that guys didn't hit with runners in scoring position. I mean, the Dodgers got him on, they got him over, and in some cases didn't get him in. There's nothing a baseball manager can do in that scenario if you're 3 for 27 with runners in scoring position. The pitching was good. The pitching moves were good. Other than the Tyler Anderson deal, they all played out to be the right decision. They all played out and literally gave the Dodgers a chance to win every single game, although they were not scoring. So I just don't think there's anything like I said, other than the Tyler Anderson deal to criticize or chew on and the pitching element. But again, if the Dodgers want to win a World Series moving forward, and again, this was an abrupt ending to 2022, we're all upset about it. And, there's so many people that have devoted so much time. That's what makes the Dodgers fan base so great. But we got to figure out a way in the future to hit with runners in scoring position. I don't know the answer to that. If Andrew Friedman knew it, he would have already done it. If Dave Roberts knew the answer to that, it wouldn't have happened in the first place. If you know the answer to that, email somebody in the Dodgers system, because you're getting ready to get rich, because there's been a lot of great baseball people that have existed on this earth that none of them have figured out, whenever you go into a slump or whenever you're struggling or whenever you're not hitting in the biggest moments, nobody's ever been able to figure out the magic formula for that and put it in the Gatorade for the guys to drink to get you out of it. That doesn't exist. So tough loss. It is what it is. The bats have been racked, and the Padres move on, and it's time for 2023. And very, very, very disappointing, abrupt ending to a otherwise historic season for the Dodgers. So a tough deal, but there you go. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of what went wrong or all the moves, everything that was done in this series, and you enjoyed the recap of that. I'm glad that you tuned in to Dodgers Daily, and I hope that you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to go over all the things that I think the Dodgers need to do in the offseason to shore up some of the positions and some of the decisions they have to make. So I hope that you tune into that. And also, as a reminder, if you like this video and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that like button, leave a comment, and tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily. Share this video so we can keep growing at Dodgers Daily and keep providing you content like this in the future. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in and say a big Go Dodgers.